Welcome and thank you for listening in. This is the Promote Your Book podcast with your host and Amazon author, Cindy Hyde. This is a book marketing podcast ready to help authors reach more readers and sell more books. I know you're excited to hear what author and book we have lined up for today's interview. You can find this podcast at promoteyourbook.podbean.com, where you can listen to personal stories about the author and their book. Let's generate some buzz and excitement about this author. And don't forget to subscribe, like, and share this episode with your friends. Now here's Cindy to get this interview started.
On today's podcast, we have a special author named Krystal Clark, and I am so excited for her to be on podcast with me today. She is an innovative young woman that has written a fantasy book. You want to tell us the title of your book?
Sure, Cindy. Thank you for having me. The title is, sure. So the title is Balance of Power, Book 1 in the Chozien Path series. And I had to say all that because I guess on Amazon you have to almost type all of that in there a little bit.
Yes, you do, don't you?
Yes.
So, of that book, what genre is the book in?
So I think it fits all three of these. Fantasy, dystopian, and post-apocalyptic. And
really?
Yeah.
That's fascinating. You're just going to have to go dive right into the story of that. How did that happen? Give me the book. Give me the book. I'm intrigued already.
So I guess what's interesting is I've always been a fantasy book lover, and this is just really one of those ways that you can kind of not only escape reality, but you can always find yourself in these books a lot of times. And what has happened, I think I read my last fantasy book probably in college, so about 20 years ago. And I haven't really revisited that, and there was a reason behind it. I was getting dissatisfied with the fantasy books because I kind of felt that they were the same thing over and over again. And so my inspiration for my book is to really showcase the many prejudices, the unconscious biases that we have, the various stereotypes, the internal conflict and mental health, moral values, all those things all rolled up into one, and how it basically impacts decisions and our interactions with other people. And that was something that I thought was incredibly important to me because I wasn't getting that out of a lot of fantasy books.
Mm-hmm.
There never was I felt it was a moment when they described maybe the person's background, okay? But what really happens in life is we really relive that over and over and over again. So it's not enough to mention it once. You have to constantly repeat that, and it has to show up, right? So I have anxiety and PTSD and panic disorder. And what happens is throughout my daily life, you're triggered. You're triggered on several occasions, and it could be the very most mundane thing that can happen that will trigger that emotion, that decision, and it will make you do something. I wanted to do that with this story because it was so important to me. It was so important to me that people could identify with any of these characters. It would be amazing that, it's almost like the Star Wars Darth Vader, and then how he had his son, and then at the end you almost basically related to Darth Vader because he saved his son's life even though he had done all these things, right? And it was so I wanted to do that. I wanted to give that because there was not enough of that in fantasy. So that's kind of the book as far as my inspiration. What led to ultimately kind of the setting of the book, the premise is spirituality. And so I do have a Christian faith. Yes. And what happened is people can be of a faith but not have a religion. And I always thought about there was a time in my life where I basically almost lost my faith. where I began to question that, and everything started to waver. And when I talk to other people, even the most devout people, they will also say, with a little bit of shame and guilt, that they have also went through that as well, because we don't understand all of these things that are happening in our life. So what ends up happening is I wanted to basically show what the faith of a mustard seed would do. And for those agnostics out there, when we talk about our brain, we only use 5-10% of our brain. But if we use so much more of that, how much more we would be. And that's what this book is basically embodying, that, encompassing all of that as well. Because I had to bring the fantasy kick. I couldn't just tell all of that and not have all of this grandeur.
Right. The book sounds absolutely fascinating. I am going to get a copy and read it. Where can your readers, I know you have a big fan base in the fantasy realm, so they can find your book on Amazon.com?
Yes.
Title of the book again is what?
Balance of Power.
And it's going to be a series.
It is. I have it as a 3-part series right now. It's something that I think is about, it's more about self-reflection and introspection. Very focused on that. But I think I will continue that on, because I want to talk about generational curses and how that impacts us as well, and how that can still continue on with the movement.
That is definitely going to be an interesting series when you finish them. Any finish date in mind for the second release?
You know what, Cindy? The amount of marketing that it has taken a toll. It would have been great if I would have just finished. I got halfway through my sequel, and then marketing took over. So I am hopefully trying to do a moment where I take a break just from marketing, so that I can write and get back to that. So it probably wouldn't be till late next year for a
marketing
sequel.
Is kind of a handful. You can write the books, that's the easy part, and then you self-publish, or you get the book out and use whichever publishing direction you go, you still have to sell your books. You have to constantly be doing the marketing, or it's just not in people's ears or face or eyes where they can see it and hear it. Well, it's been a pleasure interviewing you. Is there anything that you would want your fan base and potential future readers to know about your book or about you?
Sure. My book is, I think, if anything, with anybody who writes, we tend to write and we tend to write about ourselves. And I think that is something that is incredibly important and incredibly powerful. Mm-hmm. And one of the big pieces of my book has been, we are always one decision away from losing ourselves or saving our souls.
Oh, that's so powerful.
Yeah. And that's everything this book is to me.
Wow. Well, it sounds fascinating. What is your website, Miss Krystal?
It is movingwithmeaning.com. It's the one-stop shop to read about my blogs. You can get the links to my books. You could listen to the podcast there, get all of that good stuff.
Your podcast, your blog, your everything.
Yes.
And all the things.
Yes.
Get in
check out my YouTube channel, Moving with Meaning. I'm putting a lot of effort into creating cinematic trailers, book teasers, all that good stuff for the book, because I think audiobooks, right, have a large appeal. But if I could bring if I could bring my audience in there and get them engaged with just listening to what is to come here, if I could tease them more. That's
absolutely. So is your book audio already, or is that something that's coming?
Not yet. The big thing about my book is that it is ethnically ambiguous. So I want people to connect with the characters, and then what I would then reveal their ethnicity later on, which means you should still feel the same way about that character before you knew
Absolutely.
what they were, their culture or their
Absolutely.
background is.
I
So
agree. That's
yeah.
amazing. Well, I hope your book does wonderful, and I hope that it reaches those who need to read it, because it's a fantasy with a purpose,
Yes.
motion with meaning. Even
Yes.
in
Yes.
your book, motion with meaning. Well, thank you for joining us today on Promote Your Book podcast. Hopefully we can interview you again for your next books coming up. So don't forget to go find Krystal on YouTube and find her on her Facebook. She's on just about all the media. I know she's on LinkedIn. That's how we linked up. And she's on all the media. I'll put most of her links on the bottom of the transcription so that y'all can just click and go. Thank you, Krystal.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to today's episode of Promote Your Book podcast with author Krystal Clark, author of the fantasy book Balance of Power, the Chozien Path series. I hope I'm saying that right. This is the first of 3 books in this series. She has plans to release the second book next year. Her book description, The Onyx Order in the Eastern Upperlands, has always coveted the Chozien for themselves. They embrace domination by which their strength is determined and their numbers multiply. Their order is a constant menace. Yet the fear of being overtaken keeps them from maintaining a ruling grip over the other orders. The order that holds the Chozien can make or break the future. As such, the progress or peril of our days ahead rests upon the shoulders of the order that lays claim to the Chozien. In this tale, the Great Spirit has called to all orders that a new Chozien has been born. The search has already begun. All have released their finest huntsmen and spirit seekers to find the child. We can only hope we are not too late. Krystal's website is movingwithmeaning.com. There you'll find her book, her podcast, her life coaching services, and all the things you need to connect with her on social media. If you enjoyed this podcast today and you'd like to help support the podcast, please share with others, post about it on social media, or leave a rating and a review for us. To catch all the latest interviews, you can follow me on YouTube at Cindy Hyde and on LinkedIn at Cindy Hyde. Thanks for tuning in.